That's great. I'm really happy to know that. We could have been here in 2 hours. What the hell? Okay. I'll tell you what you folks can do. Every now and then, hold up a number of fingers or say, well, now that it's 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock, we have questions. That would be helpful. I also would consider it a great favor if you didn't mention this to anybody else. Just don't do that. Incredible. Absolutely incredible.
And Lion Barry, you're recorded right now, just to let you know.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's
Exactly.
absolutely perfect. Okay. Well, welcome tonight. Regardless of the time, and no one knows what time it is. But I think you're going to enjoy our session tonight. We're going to have a discussion with you, not at you. It's going to be with you. We're going to offer you a practical application of our topic, which is public speaking. This discussion, part of it will be talking about the benefits of this topic for everything in Lions that you're doing, your business, your family, or other social groups. So in other words, we're doing one topic fits all. And I think you're going to find how that works. I'm sure you're all familiar with Jerry Seinfeld. And he had a program maybe 2 months ago. And in it, he asked the audience what they think the greatest fear people have. And he said, number 5, what would that be? What would it be? Anybody know? Well, he said that what it was death. How about number 1?
Public speaking.
Public speaking. You're absolutely right. You're right. So if number 1 is public speaking is the first feared item, and the funeral is 5, death, what he said was that then it would mean that at a funeral, people are 5 times more likely to want to be in the casket than giving the eulogy. So, maybe not. Let's see how smart you are. What is glossophobia? Anybody know? Mary, did you raise your hand? Okay, given our topic, what do you think it is?
Fear of public speaking?
Exactly right. Who said that? Oh my gosh, perfect. Neil, you're going to get an extra plaque on this. It is fear of public speaking. Everybody at one time or another has been a little uncertain, uneasy about public speaking. Most of us, as we get a little more experience, we find that it's not the big bad wolf as everybody thought it was, that there are ways that we can help control it and to make our jobs as public speakers a lot easier, a lot. How many of you out there, just give me a hand raise, how many of you have ever been uneasy about public speaking? Yeah, that's almost all of you, I think. And it's true. Anybody want to share what their problem was at the time? This is not a quiz for money or anything of that type.
Nerves,
Who said what?
nerves,
Nerves? Yeah.
not
Yeah.
knowing the topic well enough. Unprepared for questions.
Fear of embarrassment.
The what? Embarrassment?
Fear of embarrassment. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of them that people have sent in to us as being part of that. There's a whole raft of reasons that you could be upset. What we're going to try to do is to make those uneasy times easier. we're gonna show some tricks on how to really get by it. We are going to be doing this as a roundtable. So you're gonna have a couple speakers, a couple of us talking, but feel at any rate, if you've got questions, for heaven's sakes, raise your hand. Because we want this to be a good give and take back and forth as we both are. We have two other people on the round table right now. One is Mike Tyler, our past district governor, our current district governor, Kerry Parker. Any of you others who want to step into it, please feel free to do it. You know, in the years that I've been doing the public speaking for either the Super Weekend or for RLLI and so forth, I have never once had anybody say to me beforehand, I can hardly wait. I just love that. And I can't wait to get into it and all that stuff, especially when you tell them that they're going to have to make a presentation in 2 days. I mean, nobody really likes them. No one enjoys it. I have had several people which have offered me money if they didn't have to make a presentation. And that's true. And many of you know who those people are. One of them is Beth Colley, who's also here. Beth, why don't you tell us what happened on that?
You want me to do what I had sent you?
Sure.
Okay. I'm gonna read it since I wrote it down. It's pretty good. It's going through RLLI in October of 2013 has really opened up my world. And PDG David Stockham was in the same class as me for all 3 years. So he can fully understand this. I was a shy person that had a hard time even talking in front of a few friends together in a group. When I say few, if there were more than 3, I was uncomfortable talking, let alone get me in a staff meeting with the folks in my own office or even Lion Club meetings. There was just no way I would talk. I would just sit there and listen and hope that I wasn't called on to say something. Well, 2003 came and so did the RLLI. The public speaking session came. One person offered $100 to skip her. I wasn't that rich, but I did offer some dollars. Needless to say, bribery got us nowhere. It came to the last day of the RLLI and the public speaking session again. How I sat in my chair and I prayed that they forgot that I was in that session, but miracles of public speaking did not work. Got up and I remembered my speech. I gave the speech on how I came about the name of Ding Dong from PDG J. Carey. Got a lot of laughs with that also. The next year of our RLLI and public speaking was almost as nerve-wracking as the year before. However, I did better with that one. All of the class commented on how much better I did than the previous year. Yay! Those comments helped boost my self-confidence. Well, here we are in 2020. I will tell you that I have been in front of Lions at multiple state and district conventions doing the door prizes. I will tell you also that I now receive comments from all the Lions friends, not to mention people from work and other places, that they are glad I was a participant in the public speaking sessions of RLLI, but now they wish I would shut up. I am so loved. Bottom line is that if I can go from extremely shy and nervous talking in front of people to not having any issues at all after a few times of talking in front of people, anyone can conquer that fear. Thank you for letting me share my experience of public speaking with you, and to PDG Barry for asking me to share my experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. We really appreciate that. You know, when
And-
Beth and I talked maybe 2 months ago, and she asked me if I remembered when she was in RLLI. And I did. I absolutely remembered her. And she said, do you remember how scared I was and how I didn't want to do it? And yeah, and I remember those. And then she turns to me on one of these little squares and she said, look at me now. And I thought, that's as great a story as I think I could come up with. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
You're welcome. And me for sharing, thank you for letting me share it.
That's all right. I figured he was either here or you're going to call one of us at night. And this was far better.
It
So-
sounds good.
Thank you, though. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The one thing that you're going to notice in this as we get into the meat of it is that this is going to be essentially the skills that you need in public speaking. It is not going to be a 230 slide program, which I have given for years, which not only talks about public speaking, but also on how to construct the speech that you're going to do. That's not your problem. That's not your interest, because most of these, and looking at that, that's probably wrong, but in many cases like this, where we're doing it for the second vice governors, these are the people who have never really had much experience with public speaking before. They're the ones that seem to be as upset by that as anything. So that's why we're going to sort of skip over that time. If any of you want to hear how we make, how we construct a speech, let me know and I'll be glad to do one of these for you. The last thing before I turn you over is that you are going to be seeing in a moment, and I just want you to pull them out now. We don't have to talk about them. I sent all of you one of these. Do you remember that the last couple days? And I asked you to print it out and bring it with you. There are 12 items on here that I have found over the years, and I've handed this out every year, that every block on there, and I have 12 blocks on here, if you have a problem with public speaking, almost every problem can be solved by one of those boxes. So keep that sort of in mind when we talk about some of the other questions that you guys have sent in preparation for that. Now, Governor Carey, would you like to take the next portion here?
Wow, okay, so where to start with that? PDG Barry, do you have questions from them? I think that'd be a great place to start with.
I
Start with
do.
the things that are the biggest concern to them right now.
I do.
Let's do that.
You got it. All right. Just one of them is pretty simple. I'd like to talk to you about the timing of your presentation. As you're developing your talk, how do you estimate the time? When I know I'm under a time limitation, my tendency is to talk faster than I should. How do you suggest pacing your speech pattern?
How do you suggest? Well, first off, is you have it on your sheet. You have the practice out loud. Once you have your idea and the setup for what you want to say,
That's it.
you want to look and actually run it through,
Right.
looking in a mirror, looking at your paper or your cards, and time yourself and see, one, how long it's taking. And then with that, where are you rushing it? You know, if you see that you're rushing, I wish, by the way, that I didn't talk enough to, I was under. That's usually not my problem. But if you see that you're having a pacing issue, check first off how long it's taking you to do it before you actually get up to do the speech. See where
Right.
you're rushing, and then try it again. Rerun through it again and try slowing it down or making a note to yourself on the cards, even if it's just to stop and look up or to ask a question to keep yourself on pace. And make sure that when you're doing it, you're not just adding things to add them. One of the things that PDG Barry has on here is know your goals. And one of the things people tend to do when they are short on the time that they need, they start filling in with other things. You want to make sure that what you're putting in has a goal and an objective, so that when people leave, they know what the purpose of your speaking was about. When you start filling in with lots of extras, that doesn't really work unless you've planned for some side stories or personal stories that are good fill-ins that make your point.
Very good. I'd add this also to that sheet. Get a clock that works. So, I mean, for whatever that's worth. That's
Well, know
probably
where the
best-
clock is in the room too.
The
When you
what?
go into a room, know where the clock is in the room.
Yes,
So you know where
absolutely.
to look to keep yourself from going too long or from getting distracted.
Yes, you are correct. All right. You want some of the other questions now? And if they're yours, if you want to own up to them, fine. If not, that's all right. We'll just talk about them. Actually,
Oh,
the
more.
very first item that I have on there was length. Too much time or too little. How do you know, and this came from a much longer question, but how do you know when you're asked to speak to XYZ club on a particular issue that they have coming up? How do you know how much time you as a speaker should devote to that? Is that a 20-minute talk? No. Is it 5 minutes? Maybe, maybe not. You know, as you go on, you will find that most of the questions that you have are answered by, and what I call a by the way question. Because as you make a visitation, it doesn't matter what you're making a visitation for, as you're making that, and you finish that, you put out the information that you needed to put out, and then at the end, you're thanking everybody, and the president of the club will say, oh, by the way, since you're here, I wonder if you could answer one question for me. I guarantee you that's going to happen to you. Guarantee it. And they will ask you a question on that. You should know how to get around that. And I have ways that you can do it. How do you overcome nervousness or stage fright? Is another one. Yes, Mike.
Unmute yourself, Mike.
I am terrified. I am terrified to go on stage. I have been since I was a kid. I still am today. I've been in front of 20,000 people before. I've been with some very famous people. And let me tell you, I have a keyboard rig that's taller than I am, so I could sit behind it and hide. And by the way, it might be fun to speak in front of people, but try singing. It's not easy. So I have stage fright still to this day, like you wouldn't believe, but I am now getting over it. Usually some kind of alcoholic remedy does help me get started. But after that, it's just a little tiny one to get started out. It takes out the little jitters. But after that, I'm fine, usually. But you know, you have to know your audience and what you're doing. And staying involved with that audience does help. In other words, I've now practiced it so many times that I know what to say, when to say it, and I keep it like it's a single person that I'm speaking of. Let me give you an example. When I'm on stage, for example, I come up front and take a picture, if you will, of the entire audience. Now, this was actually done by Joe Walsh, and I actually played with his drummer, Joe Vitale. And I went in front of the stage and said, you know, you're such a great audience. Do you mind if I take your picture? And I'm standing there with a camera that has a flash on. And I said, wait a minute, could you guys kind of scooch in on the end? And everybody laughs. And then I take the flash photo and I said, thank you very much. But the thing is, I got them involved in what I was doing. And that also helps when you're doing a speech as well. So I'm terrified of speaking in public still to this day. Don't like it. Don't want to do it. I'd rather play and sing and stay hidden behind a keyboard rack. But I can't do that much anymore. But That's where I am today, but I've got so good at practice that's where I am now. Thank you.
Well, and I think you make a good point, PDG Mike, and it goes back to what Mary had said earlier. Being nervous is just kind of a given, but if you know your topic, if you know your audience, and you've talked, for example, on visitations, where you've actually talked to the president ahead of time, so you know, are you speaking at the beginning or at the end? Is there something specific the club needs addressed? How long do they want you to speak for, or do they have something else and they need you to speak for a shorter amount of time? When you deal with all of those things ahead of time, it takes a lot of the things that makes us nervous and pushes those to the side. So you just have that little bit of nerves to deal with, as opposed to worrying about all of the other stuff. It's being prepared. Know your topic, know your audience, and get the specifics ahead of time.
That's almost all those on there.
And District Governor Kerry's actually right. You know, another thing that's on that list is stay involved. Let me tell you a little secret about that one. I went to the Calcutta Lions Club and they were having a duck race. They have it every year. And what they do is, I asked, well, what do you do? And he says, well, we put paint numbers on the bottoms of the ducks and then they go down and race in the water. So I stayed involved by saying, well, how do you keep the ducks still enough to basically write numbers on the bottom of them? And they said, well, they're plastic. Oh, well, you didn't say that. So that's how I stay involved with the group too. So that's kind of neat. Thank you.
Well,
That's,
and PDG Barry has on their eye contact. If you're
Yeah.
nervous, and this is just a teacher trick, something I learned when I first started teaching. If you're nervous, you don't even have to imagine people in their underwear or anything. Just look them in the eye and move. Don't linger on one person, but move your glance around, because if they know that you're looking at them, now they're more nervous than you are. But they're engaged and they feel like they have something to listen to. But when you look at people and you actually look at them in the eye for just that half a second, that's a confidence booster too, because you realize that they're listening and you're an interactive part of this.
yes,
If I could add something, if you don't mind,
sure.
a personal experience. Addressing a jury, appearing in front of a jury. The first thing that they understand, no matter how educated or uneducated the jury is whether or not you're being yourself, that you're not being artificial, and that you're not only representing yourself, but you're representing a client. Now think of this in terms of what Barry put together here on this sheet. People have a tendency to see through you, and when you stand in front of a group, no matter in what condition or what scenario it is, they can see through you. But when you're dealing with one's personal life and one's personal future, you learn by experience that being yourself and speaking directly and eye contact, at least that's been my experience, eye contact is extremely important. I just wanted to add that layer to you. That's another experience that, quite frankly, until you experience it yourself and the weight on your shoulders. And I guess we can compare it when you're representing your district in front of a club. You're actually doing yourself a service to others by being yourself. So I think that's very important. That's the first thing I was taught, and it served its purpose. I just wanted to add that.
Yes, yeah.
Barry, can I just make a point? I want to go back to what Michael said about his experience when he got in front of the audience and he took their picture. One of the other things that Michael did was it was humorous because he told them scooch together. That's all it took was a little bit of humor takes the edge off of just about anything.
You know, and you're so right. I actually start speeches with a small little humor. For instance, at my district convention when I was governor, I stood up. My first thing I said was, I'm so sorry. I took the wrong medication this morning. And I said, I'm just not right. But you know, I'll be free of fleas and ticks for the next 6 months, and why do I crave dog biscuits? So starting off with some kind of humor does help. But you have to watch, you got to know your audience, because you don't want to do anything off color or anything like that that may harm somebody. You don't want to do that either. So making fun of yourself also helps. But thank you
The
for
same is true for personal stories. A personal story is a good way you can kind of get some buy-in from your audience too, if you have something that's relevant to your topic. And it's good to have, if you know you're speaking on this subject or this one, it's good to have just a little treasure chest that you can go to once you've got a chance to meet some of the club members or the people in the audience. You can gauge which story is going to kind of grab them or hook them and get them some buy-in to what it is that you have to tell them. But that takes a little bit of experience, just judging which stories are going to really grab the audience that you're talking to.
Lion Barry, you have, I'm sorry. Lion Neal.
Neil,
So 2 years ago, I was supposed to do president's training, a short one at the district convention. And they told me to go to a particular room, and the room was locked. I couldn't get into it. And I finally got somebody to open it, and there were no tables, no chairs, nothing in there. It was an empty room. And I asked why, and the guy from the hotel said, well, because that room's not one that you folks have reserved. It wasn't supposed to be used. And I'm kind of scratching my head. And finally, they stuck me in the corner of a room that was being changed for some other purpose later on. And I mean, I was totally thrown off of my track. So talk about being nervous when you start something. If you don't, you can know your topic as well as anybody. You can be as prepared. You can have all the wonderful 3x5 cards in the world. And if stuff like that happens, you're going to be off track. And it throws your pitch off.
something that I used to do with RLLI, I would always get up to the room 5-10 minutes ahead of time. And as people would come up, just introduce myself. You know, where are you from? Oh, we're from Baltimore. We're doing, or whatever. You know, is it your wife? Yes. And we talk a little bit. You have kids or grandchildren? And I bet you have pictures. How about a dog? You got it? What kind of dog? Oh, yeah, we've got so forth. Well, I thank them, and then we get ready for the talk. During the course of the talk, I always ask them. They would each stand, and I asked them to tell me a little bit about themselves. And some of you were in that class or one of the classes, and they would tell me, you know, well, we've been married for 35 years, and we have 5 children, and we have 4 grandchildren, and we've lived in the same house that, well, whatever, go on. So when everybody gets through, I thank them then very much for giving me their first 2 topics. I said, well, what do you mean first 2? We haven't done any. And I said, yes, you did. Because you talked to me as I would expect you to talk in a speech. You're just talking to somebody in the hall. That's how you should look at it. It's that simple. Doesn't have to be a big deal. We're just talking. When we get into the into their interview is to tell us about yourself. Again, we're talking to a friend. That's all we're doing. But at that point, they've given two count them, public speaking, public speeches. So I mean, it's always been. It can certainly be flexible. There are a lot of ways to do it. It's been mentioned in here. You know, make friends ahead of time, even with your audience. They will immediately grab onto you on that. I mean, how many of you? Good example. How many of you have ever been in a speech only to see the guy really screw up? I mean, he doesn't know what he's doing. He forgets, he does this. Well, your impulse is not to say, yes, by God, that got it. Your impulse is, oh, wow. I hope he'll come out. And many times they'll give him an applause when he gets done on it. So again, it's just sort of a, the audience will relate to you. They want you to do well. They don't want you to have a problem. Really don't. And somebody had said, what if they don't like you? Well, they will. I mean, after all, you know more than they do about this topic. Yeah. Any other comments on that?
I could just add one thing. It's some of us today probably were nervous driving in the snow for the first time this year, and we care. We don't want to have a wreck and so on. And that nervousness is a good thing. It makes you careful. It makes you be prepared, and it's natural to be nervous when you speak to a group a little bit, because you care. And you hear these pro golfers talk about being nervous on the first tee and so on. That's kind of a natural thing. So I don't think nervousness is something to be overcome. It's something to welcome, because when you get to that point where you're not nervous, it's just the same old stuff. And I've been to quite a few conventions, and there have been a few PIDs that have come in there, or IDs, and they've given that speech so many times, that it's you lose the personal touch. It's like, are they sincere about this or not? And they're not nervous. They're so overwhelmingly confident, or whatever the case might be. So I once you learn to deal with nervousness, it's a pretty good reminder to you, that what you're doing is important. And,
Yeah.
you want to
Dave,
give the best effort.
you taught for a lot of years, didn't you?
I taught for a long time.
Is there a difference in talking to a class other than a group of Lions?
No,
Same
It-
basics?
I think it takes a while, and Carrie will probably tell you this. When you're teaching, when you're with the class, just like you said initially, I'm not teaching you about public speaking. We're learning about it together, sharing and things. It took me a few years to get, into the position where I was just sharing information and participating in it. And it's the same thing with Lions clubs. When you go there, you're sharing with one of the greatest groups, people that do service in the world. And if you forget about that part, like you're just some leader performing or something, then you probably lost your audience, and you probably lost a little bit of your own purpose for what you're doing.
Sure.
We get better at those things. They used to tell us to look over the back of the class. Carrie pointed out, look directly at them. They would say, look over the back of your audience if you're nervous. And then maybe as you got better at it, you could look at them. And then the bad side of that was if you started to have a sort of a personal conversation with just one person in the group, you have to continue to remember why you're there and what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
PDG Dave, can I pick up on something that you said?
Sure.
I think it's really important. You said about the interest, and I think that that's one of the things that as a speaker you bring to some of the clubs. And one of the things that they'll remember the most about when you speak, they will remember the passion, not just the knowledge you have about your topic, but they're going to remember the passion and the feeling you bring to the topic that you're giving. They, just like PDG Barry said, they don't want to see you fail, but when you can actually get them involved in the topic and bring your emotions to it, and it's usually our passion for Lions or for one of our many projects, that grabs people also. That kind of boosts what you have to say. It's one of the most important things you can bring to a speech when you can.
And just,
Turn is the thing as a speaker that you get out of the interaction, that you also feel fulfilled, that you communicated something, well with someone, and you got back, something from that as well. Satisfaction.
just to Governor Carey, I could, when you're saying have a grabber, like a starter, that in a speech, that's a great thing to have, because the next thing on your line is tell them. You want to get across a message, if you will. Tell them is on your sheet. So you want that grabber to go out. I had to do, for my master's degree, I had to do a dissertation in front of 6 doctorates to get my degree. Now, what unfortunately, if you want to talk about really being under the gun, we had an hour and a half and we had to talk about a company that we researched beyond means. And basically what we had, I was lucky enough to get Parker Hannifin, which is a hydraulic company. They do pneumatic tools or air tools and things like that. So how I started my speech was, I said, it's true that Parker Hannifin sank the Titanic. But let me get back to that. So by the end of my speech, to tie it in, I said, so now you can understand how the hydraulic machines and the pneumatic or air tool machines actually sank the Titanic from the movie, 1999 movie, James Cameron's Titanic movie, and how they actually sank that actual ship to make it look real. So that's how you tie in that speech, or you bring back the grabber. Though was, it's true that Parker Hannifin sank the Titanic. It's a great opener, but how you finish and tell them so that you can get your message across, that's a great thing too.
I'm glad you believe that. I'm going to charge for those. What do we mean by tell them? Any thoughts? What does that mean?
I can tell you how the Air Force explains that. They beat that into me for 20 years. First you tell them what you're gonna tell them, then you tell it to them, then you tell them what you told them.
That's right.
100%. Perfect, Earl. That's right. Because they always tell you, regardless of what it is, that you've got to tell somebody something at least 3 times for them to understand it. Either write it down or just say it. And that's exactly the reason on the tell them. If you have a program, tell them what you're going to talk about. We did this morning, we did, our clock had screwed up, so we did it now. But at the very beginning, we talked about it was going to be a round table. It was going to do this. Now we're doing that. At the end of this, we're going to say, now this is what we've done. Same thing, exactly the same as Earl said. Exactly. Any other comments, in fact, on any of these? I'll give you another question if you'd like.
Barry, can I add one thing to your tell them?
Of course.
One of the things that I found as I go around as governor, I have what I want clubs to know and what I want to tell them. But there's also a lot of announcements that I have to make for the district. Whether it's an event coming up or whether it's something that's just come out of the cabinet meeting, there's information that I have to give sometimes it's not a sidebar. It's just as important as what I want to tell them in my speech. But you want to consider how you put that into the body of what you're going to talk about, so that those announcements come out as clear and exactly how they have to be expressed so people remember them. But then your message is the tell them as well. And they leave with both pieces of information.
Right.
Just something to think about.
I used to get around a good part of that by telling them that now this is all the news that you're going to get tonight. And I forget whether it was Huntley or Brinkley, or, I mean, it goes back a ways, but the news part is over here. And we're going to tell you, this is what zone wants, this is LCI and so forth. Then you go on with your presentation in a whole different thing. And it works. It does work. Probably, oh, here are 2 things. What if they make fun of me? And what if I make a mistake? I mean, are you in trouble? Everybody, I am seeing head shake, but no one is commenting.
Well, but everybody makes mistakes. I don't care if you're a world's ace speaker.
I don't.
Yeah, everyone wants to be
By
perfect
this
like you,
clock,
Barry.
I'll tell you,
Jerry, if you don't make a mistake, then you won't doing anything.
That's right.
oh,
I must be doing a heck of a lot. You guys know that, right, Dave?
Yeah. You're a busy woman, Mary.
The first thing we learn in Boy Scouts is to be able to get up in front of people and make a fool of yourself. So we make everybody do it.
but once they get up, Neil, they're not going to be scared the next time. I'm speaking to you. I'm speaking directly to you. It'll happen the next time we speak. I know Neil, and I can talk to him. If I can make a joke, I usually don't try to do this one, but where I have a stupid clock that doesn't work, I mean, that's something that I can bring back over and over, and you'll say, "Oh, that poor devil, he didn't know what he was doing." And you'd be right. There is a question that's out there that you're all going to run into, every single one of you. And I'm going to tell you how to get out of it. And it's going to be probably the best answer that you will see anything tonight. And what that question is something you don't have a clue what's happened. The best answer is, I don't know. Don't lie to them, for God's sake. And I've been in situations where the speaker has lied, and you know that he's lying. But the key is, you can tell them, I don't know, but I know someone who does. I will call them after our meeting tonight, and I'll get back to you tomorrow. A lot of the times, I will refer to Dave Risen. I mean, if it has anything to do with legal compliance. And I say, I don't know that, but I can call Dave Risen tonight and I'll have him give you a call. And if for whatever reason, if he can't call tomorrow, I'll call and say, I talked to him. He's okay. He was busy tonight, but he wanted me to touch base with you and make sure that you understood that he's working on it. One of the best things to do. I don't know the answer. I don't know it. And it gives you credibility. You're not some guy that's walked in with a red jacket and you know everything there is, because you don't. And they will absolutely know you didn't on that. I'd like for you to take these home and just look at them. Talk about some of the issues that we've talked about today and how any of those might have come into play. And I think you'll find that there are a lot more on there that are worthwhile than you ever dreamed. Hang on to that. I've hung on them to for a lot of years. I revise them occasionally, but I always hand them out to whatever my group is. Now, Mike, do you want to jump into this any place?
Sure. I could tell you a speech that I actually took a speech class online. I know you're all wondering how you do that. How do you take a speech class online? Well, I did it and was the only class that I took online. And the only reason is because I wanted to boast about it later. Well, to tell you the truth, to my dismay, instead of meeting during the week, we met on the weekends, which basically now I got time away from my family, which I didn't like. So at any rate, to make a long story short, I had a gentleman call me at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday. It was one of my fellow students that I was going to school with. And he says, "I'll see you in about an hour." And I said, "For what?" And he says, "Well, we're having a meeting today and we're supposed to do an argumentative speech." I says, "What?" He goes, "Yeah. Don't you remember? Well, I had been so involved during the week that and work and whatnot, that I completely forgot about it. So of course, I threw some clothes on real quick and headed out the door. And I remembered speaking about doing an actual research paper on a Sloan study about gun control or something like that. Well, my audience was all women and I was the only male there. So I think if I did a gun control thing, it would be wonderful. So I went through a Sloan study that basically went through Vancouver, Canada in my head. Now, keep in mind, I've got 30 minutes driving time to make up this speech before I get there. That's how quickly I had to make this speech up. I only had a half hour. So I had to remember everything in my head, and I'm speaking in the car, trying to walk through it. The radio's off. I'm just going focused on what I got to do. So I walked into my class. The lady has me up there second, which is not very fun. I still don't like being up in front of people. So I get up in front of everybody and I start walking around instead of standing behind the podium, much like a teacher does, because I've seen it before. So I try to mimic what a teacher does. So I started talking. Well, let me tell you about the Sloan study that they had from Vancouver, Canada to Seattle, Washington. Same demographic amount of people, same amount of violence for guns. One has a 30-day waiting period, the other doesn't. They found no relation in gun-related crime. And by the way, the Second Amendment of the Constitution lets you have as many guns as you want. So about this time, I start looking in the eyes of the ladies that I'm talking to, and they're starting to get mad. I can see it out in their audience. Remember, this is an argumentative speech. So I reversed it real quick and easy and said, so let them have their guns. They can have as many as they want. I want to get rid of bullets, anything that makes a bullet. I want to make gunpowder illegal. We just take away the bullets. They can shoot with any guns as they want. They can do whatever they want with their guns. And they started liking what I was saying. So know your audiences is another thing that you got to know. And that's a really good example, probably the best one. That I got an A for my paper, and the actual teacher, who was a doctorate, said to me, "Did you memorize your speech? That was really good." So Lion Barry, that's what I had to tell you on that one. I think that was
It's the same basic thing as when you're married. You learn in a hurry how to reverse your courses. Immediately. Oh, no, that doesn't make you look fat. You look great. You good. Well, you think I should be? Yes. That's the only thing you got to remember. Or maybe not. I don't know. I'm not sure. You had mentioned eye contact. Let me throw in something on that. I have always been a great proponent of eye contact, to the point where we would set up our rooms, like for RLLI, which is a big horseshoe, and I would be in the middle, so that I could walk around and talk to each person. As I'm giving the presentation, I can have eye contact with you, then I can have eye contact over here. And it truly helps. It absolutely helps. In the last couple of years, my legs have been bad, so I haven't been able to do that. So I'm just sitting in the chair going, which is pretty stupid. But that eye contact is really, really important, because again, when you make eye contact with somebody, you sort of latch on, both of you, and they listen to what you're saying. Mike, do you have anything else to say?
Well, yeah, there's, and when you're public speaking, and another thing is that I noticed a lot of people do. If you don't know your subject matter well, you're kind of, how many times have you all heard that? Well, Those, if you research what you're going to talk about first, those moments really won't happen. And if they do, and it's happened to me, you stop. You take a caesura, you timely pause, if you will, and remember where you were. Sometimes that happens too. You're thinking, where was I when I started this speech? Oh yeah, that's right. I wanted to talk about this subject matter. I always have a plan B, by the way. For instance, around the holidays, my personal thing in Lions is to give to food banks and food shop. I love seeing people fed. I came from a very poor neighborhood when I was a kid. We had to go on government cheese and things like that. My parents had 6 kids. I'm the eldest. So I was the most responsible one, apparently, to take care of my brothers and sisters while my parents worked during the night and during the day. So I always think about that at a Lions meeting, especially around the holidays, Thanksgiving, Christmas. And I use that in my back pocket as a plan B, as would you please, just this time of year, think of somebody who can't eat and try to give to a food bank. I do that at zone meetings pretty well too. And believe it or not, the response is really nice when you get somebody who comes up and says, Past District Governor Mike, we did that today. And you know what? I'm so proud of you. I really am. So, and try to get rid of that, but remember those things that basically you're pretty much talking about, or take a timely pause and remember where you were.
Okay. All right. I'm going to introduce you to your new best friend in the whole world. You know what they are?
Bet you they're 3x5.
Who said that? You smarty.
There they
That's
are.
Exactly. What
I've had you at RLLI before.
Well, see, but that's, yes, okay, never mind, never mind. You can put more information on a 3x5 and it will guaranteed bail you out of hot water in a snap. Let me tell you what I mean. I've been in meetings where the speaker has had everything printed out. And one of the guys in RLLI had everything printed out, little tiny things, and he had it on his laptop. And moments before he was introduced, I was sitting behind him, and his screen goes blank, and it suddenly everything on the screen is like that high. So he might get 3 or 4 letters on the screen. I mean, just dead in the water. Absolutely dead in the water. But at any rate, he did not have an additional set just in hand to be able to carry on his talk. But 3x5 cards. Let me just give you some ideas of what I absolutely would make a 3x5 card on. And you're going to say, well, why would you do that? I'm going to remember it. No, you won't. Guarantee you won't do it. Number 1, name of the club. How many of you gone to your club meeting to have your speaker say, oh, I'm really happy to be here in Reynoldsburg. And there's a pause and you think, no, I'm in the downtown Lions Club. I mean, it's embarrassing. Put the club down there so that as you're talking, you've got it right there. You know what club they're in. You also know, on card number 2, the name of the president. The name of the president. It's Earl Kerr. All right? But my God, I forgot his name just a moment ago. And I said, well, here's Earl. Godsend. Any special members? Like some of those people that are brand new. They would like you to induct them. They might want you to present Mellon Jones Award. You might want to, or they might ask you beforehand to make a presentation to John Smith, who has brought in 9 new members over the past month. It's just a really great job you've done, and we want to present you with this. They may ask you for an invocation. And I don't know how many times I've been stuck on that, where they say, would you mind saying the blessing? And I don't know the group, so I'm not sure what I should be doing on it, but I always give them the Lion's Prayer. How many have heard that? You know what it is? Pretty simple. fits on one of these, and you can say, yes, da, 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 da. You can do it. They might ask you, again, this is sort of a by the way, what's the best service project that you're finding in the district? Well, I'll tell you. How about the best fundraiser? It works two ways. Let's say that Dave told me that his best one was selling balloons at Halloween. And I can fire back at him, wow, tell me about that. How do you do that? Who's in charge of it? I mean, what kind of money can you make? How many people do you need? People love talking about themselves. They love it. Always remember to ask questions. Induction of new members, which I've already mentioned on there. What other questions do you have at this point that would tie in with our topic? What other questions do you have that would help you in public speaking? Or any questions or any problem you've had? Give us a problem. Let's see if we can get an answer. Anybody want to volunteer? No, only one at a time. One at a time. Okay, if you are done, hang on to this. Remember I told you that the other part of this presentation has to do with the construction of your speech. We didn't feel that was your fear now. You just have never done it. You don't know how to do it, and that makes you nervous. You don't particularly care that you need to do an outline or whatever. I do have that 230 slides though, that if any of you would like to see it, just let me know. Another offer, are those fingers? Kenny? Are you giving me fingers? As to, oh, that's what I thought you were. What time is it, by the way?
8:03.
Oh, okay, we're within range on it. But any other questions having to do with this? I thank you very much for showing up. Beth, I appreciate your sharing with us. Carrie, thank you so much. You've done a lot of good work for this committee. Mike, you've done great also. And I want to thank all of you that have volunteered to jump into it. So I thank you all very much. Be careful in the drive home, out that driveway, all those good things. Our next program from GLT is coming up next, I believe it's next Sunday. And I will send that out to you. Here we are. Public relations and the NAMI group with Dave Weinman. Those are both on the 6th of December. And it's followed up at the end, January 10th, with protocol and your visitations, specific. How can you handle your visitations? We're going to talk about asking questions. We're going to talk about meeting the family. And Carrie just mentioned that she hopes the recording of this will be posted. I would hope so too. All right. Any final questions?
Yes, I do. Why are we doing this now? My visitations are almost done. All of this stuff would have been more relevant back in July, August.
Yep, you are 100% right. This program and the one we have ending up in January was to originally happened back in May and June. We couldn't do it. So things had to be put off. This coming year, for the second vice district governor program, that's what this is. Because most of them have not had a lot of experience in public speaking. But you're right. I mean, it seems like it's totally out of context. I believe for a long time that you can't get enough of the public speaking concepts and ideas as to what you can do, how you can make it better, which is one of the reasons why I sent to as many people as I could the information, come hear us. It's an auto. Cynthia, are you second or first?
Second,
You're second. Okay. So this would have been perfect for you.
yes.
If
And
you-
visitations. I had to figure out my visitation schedule on my own. And I have maybe 5 clubs now left in my district to visit because I started out right away. If I had waited till now, I'd never get them done because of all the restrictions going on.
Yes. Yeah. But thank you for that. You're absolutely right on it. That our timing should have been, if we had done it back in the summertime, before
Actually,
you
it's
started your
not
visitation.
doing actually, it should be taught at district level, at leadership school to zone choose. It would help them. It should be offered at district levels. It shouldn't wait till we get up, this far.
Well,
Just for, for Cynthia, same thing. She would have been more comfortable to start out.
yes. Mary, in years past, again, this particular session is primarily for the second vice district governors. Now, you are right. I mean, there's nothing wrong at all with the first district governors, the council of governors, anybody else that could improve their own public speaking skills are more than welcome to attend it and would probably get a lot out of it. I mean, what we're not trying to do is to keep people out of the meetings. We would like them to be able to attend. As an example, I mean, we have your visitations coming up here on the 10th of January. You still have some visitations. Now, how you guys are doing it is amazing to me. Truly. I mean, I think it's been sort of difficult trying to do it on Zoom, but it certainly is the easiest. It's just everything has worked out better on that. But I agree. I mean, those things should be earlier. And any further comments on that, heaven's sake, send me an email. I mean, we'd like to change anything that we need to be able to help you better. Does that sound reasonable?
PDG
Mary?
Barry,
Yes.
I really like Mary's suggestion that to do the public speaking a little bit at our zone chair training. I don't know, I can make a note and send that in too, but I don't know what the time frame works for the zone chair training. I know it's already very full and that's one more piece, but I think she has a good point in that looking at the zone chairman I have in my district, I love them all dearly. And I think that all of them would benefit from just a little bit of something on public speaking, just to give them some confidence when they have to go out and to have some idea of what they're going to say to clubs.
You're absolutely right again. You're right. When we send out the invitations to this type of a meeting, 100% right. It should go to the seconds, the first, the council, and to the zone chairman. Absolutely. They can use it. For the governors out there, please, please be sure you forward these. Talk to your zone chairman and say, I'd like you to attend this coming up next Tuesday or whatever it is. I'm trying to remember, Carrie, what exactly was taught as far as public speaking to the zone chairs or to the zones.
I don't remember. I see Lion Ann has stepped away from her computer too.
Yeah, I don't recall.
I,
I
I,
There was
recall.
nothing when I was zone chair.
let me state this, I am the GLT this year, and I already set April 25th as our zone chairman training for 2021 for our district, and this will be a subject that is included in our zone chair training. But
Okay, good.
that's just to let you know this is up and coming, and it'll be before they become zone chairman. And Lion
Right,
City,
well,
I fully understand, Lion City, that basically it was a tough ride to come in as a second vice governor and really kind of miss some really good training before you started going out and meeting with clubs. But to be honest, at that point with this pandemic, and we really on the state level, they're still trying to put things together as to how to get a hold of everybody. And I can sympathize with that a little bit because it was difficult for my club, for instance, to find Zoom, and we hadn't been meeting for months. And when we finally found it, it took 2 months past the point we really should have. I'm not looking for an apology, but it just took us a while to kind of put this together. Lion Barry's been wonderful at putting this together for us. But I wanted to let you know that it was not done in malice. We actually knew we had to do this. We wanted to do it earlier, but we just didn't have the means at that point. So that's probably the explanation I could give for that. But it took us a while as well.
Okay. I mean, good suggestions. Carrie, do you have anything else to add?
I would reiterate your thank you. We have a wonderful group of people that have stepped up to serve as second vice district governors and have gone out and training or no training, they've gone out and they've done their club visits and really just stepped up and into the role. And that's extremely admirable. The first and second vices, thank you for all that you do and going out and getting the needed information out to our clubs.
Yes, thank you.
Very good. Very good. All right, I thank you very much for coming. Send us critique if you'd like to. If any of you have any questions about public speaking coming up or whatever, give me a call.
And Council Chair Lion Kenny, if I get this recording to you, can you get it out to put it on the main website so that people can download it?
Just send it to,
Deutschman?
Yeah.
Jay Deutschman.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. I thank you all very much. Have a great drive home.
Thank
And
you.
we'll see many of you next week.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks.
Nice to
Thank
see
you.
everybody.
You guys have a wonderful
Bye-bye.
holiday.
Yes. Merry Christmas.
Yep, Merry Christmas.
And to you,
Thank you.
did you send me a gift?
Be safe.
Still in the mail, Barry.